welcome to MCTV's Let's Talk. I'm Mike Stanzillas, Vice President of Membership and Government Affairs for the Morris County Chamber of Commerce. And today's member spotlight is with Greg Stewart of NexGen Management. Greg is a 15-year member of the Morris County Chamber of Commerce and ambassador, and 16 years ago, Greg started NexGen Management after completing a successful 32-year career with AT&T. Greg is also a Mount Olive Township councilman. Now, here is what I find very interesting about Greg. Greg started his professional career right out of high school at New Jersey Bell, climbing telephone poles to splice wires. And from there, he climbed his way up to a global management position overseeing 100 people integrating Fortune 100 companies into the AT&T communications and data network. So that says a lot about Greg's work ethic and smart. So Greg, hi, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it and appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you. So Greg, climbing up telephone poles, it seems to be a very challenging job, especially in the wintertime. What were some of the hardest challenges of working on telephone poles?
Well, the biggest thing that we always wanted to do is not fall, slip and cut out, as we used to call it. That was Splinter Haven. But to this day, I still have the effects of being dumb, 17 years old, thinking I'm better than my gloves were. And during the winter, when you're working with those little wires, no gloves, I still have frostbite to this day that affects me whenever it's cold. So I'll go out skiing, my fingers get numb. I go shoveling snow, my fingers get numb.
Wow, frostbite for the rest of your life from, I guess, the lack of wisdom at a young man climbing telephone poles. So let's just quickly transition into what you do now. And you bring a lot of wisdom. And I'm sure, you know, all of that leadership and management experience you've had over the years, the wisdoms you can share with your clients so they can avoid getting business frostbite, if you will. What are some of the mistakes you see businesses making today, Greg?
And that's the point. I try to leverage my background, which encompasses everything from sales to marketing to product management to operations. And the thing that I see most is they're too close to it. So they miss the pieces that are actually stopping them from being successful. So they're overlooking things that you or I would walk in and say, oh my gosh, we got to help with this. The hardest part is to getting, quote unquote, that light bulb on so that they recognize the fact of, hey, we need to address this. It'll make your life easier so that you can actually run the business, not have it run your life.
So it sounds like maybe letting go or trust, are those some of the issues you see people who are making that transition?
The biggest thing is trust. The biggest thing is the trust factors you just pointed out, the trusting yourself, that you have the right skill sets and the right team, and trusting your team. You hired them for a reason, let them do their job. And a lot of the challenges, the newer type challenges today affect that, that they used to be able to quote unquote hover. Now with some of the remote work and the 50-50 mixtures and the other type of dynamics going on, they really have to let go and trust their team and put the right dynamics and measurements in place, that you made the right decisions, trust your folks to do their job, you do your job, and pay attention to your clients. The biggest letting up, trust.
Yeah, so when you're guiding your clients, I would imagine there's the pre-COVID and the post-COVID era here for managing teams and managing remote teams. What are some of the tips or some of the, I guess, processes that you're helping your customers with in managing teams remotely like this?
The whole thing is having measurements that both of you agree to. And so you put them in place. And the key things that drive your success. My biggest thing has always been on customer satisfaction, and build your relationships around that, as well as your delivery and support functions. And I go back to my old quote unquote AT&T days where I was measured under profit and loss, and I measured my team under client satisfaction. And we lost one client in 5 years, and that was because that division was bought by another company that had a competitor. We never lost directly to a competitor because of client satisfaction. I hold those principles to this day. And when I'm working with a client, it's about that. Do you ask your clients for feedback, or is it only reactive? Do not be reactive. If there's one tip people can take, do not react, be progressive about it, reach out to your clients and ask them for feedback. I used to meet when I was a general manager with all of those key folks minimum once a year, normally 4 times a year, for just general feedback on our delivery. And I follow that model throughout my life of business. And I try to emphasize that and make my clients today do the same thing. Proactively reach out to your clients and get feedback on how you're doing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So many businesses are so reactive, right? Because if things are quiet, they must be good, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case. There's an old expression: if you're not talking to your customers, guess what? Somebody else is. So being proactive as opposed to being reactive, that's a really great takeaway. What do you do to I guess, encourage leaders? You know, you talked about letting go before. How do you train people who are, I guess, at that tipping point when they've started a business and they're the person pretty much doing everything, and they get to that tipping point where they have to realize, am I going to scale up, or am I going to stay at this level here where I'm the manager, doer, leader, the do everything person? What do you do to help people make that leap, really?
The worst part is normally you get, I've done it like this for years. Okay, the market has changed. To your point, COVID has changed the dynamics of the marketplace and also on how businesses have to operate, because now you have a mixture of your clients that some are comfortable, some are not. So their behavior is going to change. You need to change as well as your team. You're going to have a mixture of both. So the biggest part is to really start to put together what are the dynamics of your business from a financial perspective, from a operations perspective, from a where do you want this to go. One of the things I do when I work with a client is I actually start out with a bunch of questions. I go through the whole operations with them, but one of the ones I get the most interesting feedback from is, do you have an exit strategy? And boy, do you get some interesting, why would I do that? It starts off with. And one point, if anybody can take from this as well, is you always should have an exit strategy, but it doesn't have to be concrete. It will change over time because your dynamics will change. So you could have one now that I want to just turn it over to my kids, to I want to position myself to be sold, to I want to buy somebody else in the future. But that can change throughout the dynamics, and it should be reviewed every single year. And that's one of the things I do with the clients is, all right, what is your strategy? Has it changed? What has worked this past year? What has not worked? And really focus. If there's 2 things they can do and they can do it themselves, focus on the 2 endpoints. What's working and figure out why it's working. What's not working and figure out why it's not working. Fix those components. Because at your point of not asking the clients, and this is one of the things I always try to warn folks, human nature dictates we're always going to share a bad experience. So if that's festering underneath and you're not, and you think everything's good because they're quiet, they could be yapping to somebody else about, hey, Mike is really terrible. We got to get out of here. And people will always share that bad news component. And the worst part is human nature dictates most people will try to top your bad story. Oh, I have a worse story than that. So bad news shares very, very fast. Good news, very, very slow. So be proactive and reach out. Figure those components out. If you're not driving those certain components of your client, getting feedback to adjust proactively, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to be chasing all of your bad habits or your bad behaviors or bad service around. You're just going to keep losing customers. But you really went over a lot just now, and there's a lot to unpack there. Let's pick a couple of things. Okay, so you started out with sort of the management to leader, right? There's that whole thing of, in your mind, you're transitioning from a manager, business operator into a leadership, more hands-off position. What are some of the difficulties you see taking place when people have to make those, or somebody gets a promotion even at an already existing company? They have that sometimes inability to make that transition into a leadership position. How do you guide people, and what are some of the pitfalls you see in that respect?
You know, and the biggest Achilles heel per se is still that trust. You have to trust in yourself. You were promoted for a reason. Why'd you get promoted? Now, don't be flagrant about it, but there's a reason that you stood apart from the other folks, that you either promoted somebody in your own team or you got promoted. Trust factor that it's accurate, deliver to those components, and then trust your team. If your team is weak, you need to focus on those key components. And one of the things we call KPIs, the key process indicators, which are huge. They go back to, I've done Baldrige reviews with clients nationwide on that national team as well. And KPIs are used universally. Use them. And they don't have to be 20 pages of it. It could be 4 or 5 key ones that you really need to measure that deliver how your company's managing, how it's delivering, how it's performing, and how your clients are accepting it. So set targets, realistic, but reach. They shouldn't be that, hey, I just accomplished them today because I'm not doing anything. They got to be within a reach, same as you do with your sales team. Set a reach target that they can achieve. Never set something that's totally unachievable, because then you're going to just totally kill any of the enthusiasm that you had. So you got to build up that trust factor. You really got to build up and also keep your the overall components of your team. What's the real team? Is it a team or is it not? If it's not a team, you're in big trouble. And that was one of the things you got to really wade through. And so as you get to a more leadership position, you got to act as a leader. Stop just joining the crowd. You don't have to be liked by everybody. You do have to set the goals, measure the goals, give accurate and effective feedback, and then also support folks that need that help. And I always tried to do, and to this day, I try to do the same thing with my clients, is always try to hire somebody, quote unquote, better than yourself. Why? You don't have to worry about them. Worry about the ones that need the help, that need those couple hours where you have to spend with them. Say, all right, how did you do today? All right, why'd you do this? Some people may be as ineffective at time managing, as a case in point. So you set some stuff with them where they have to report in. What are they looking to do? All right, what are your goals today? And then review with them what they missed. And then when are they going to reschedule? Because if it was important enough to set that goal and you didn't get to it today because something else came important, that's okay. You can prioritize, but then you need to reset that, because if it was important enough to be on that list, it better be important enough to be reset. Those are the type of things where you can help take your team to the next level. Also, it helps them take themselves to the next level, because now they're really paying attention on helping the business and their team grow. That's where you really build team leadership and team compassion within everybody. And that's where you start to drive success.
Wow, there's so much there, Greg. So clearly, Greg Stewart, NexGen Management, is the voice of wisdom. I would say, in your case, Greg, there is no substitute for experience, and you certainly have so much experience working your way up from the bottom of a telephone pole to the top of a global management position for one of the world's largest telecom companies. All that wisdom and experience is definitely an asset for your customers and for our chamber members. So Greg, any final parting words? 5 seconds here, go ahead.
Just that don't be afraid to ask for help. That's the number one thing, if I can leave it with anybody. Don't be afraid to ask for help. We all don't have the right answers. And I partner with all of my, what would quote unquote be considered competitors. They're all friends. And that's one of the other things. Don't be afraid of your competitors. And this chamber is dynamite for that.
Greg, thank you so much for all you do here at the Chamber as an ambassador and your goodwill. And I really appreciate your membership with us. So to our members of the Chamber of Commerce, thank you for all of your support. If you're interested in doing a member spotlight, just reach out to me directly at mike@morrischamber.org. And we want to thank Greg Stewart of NexGen Management. Have a great day.
Thank you.